Hi, welcome back. And today we're going to be taking a look at contextual problems. Going to mix it up a little bit. Instead of doing everything using the iPad, I'm going to be using Screencastify again. So you'll notice that my picture's in the bottom. Then I'm going to be going through the notes, which are on a Word doc, and then typing things in. Those are the notes that I'll be putting up online. But we'll also be able to see all the graphs that come out of this as well. So a couple things that we need to take a look at. This is Q.04. We're solving contextual problems by using quadratics. Now, a contextual problem is one that there is some context to, and if we would call that the real world example, so I'm just going to highlight that. It's real world, it's things that we could actually see. It's not necessarily saying that we will see this kind of stuff because it depends on what you're going to be doing in life or outside of the side of our classroom. But for now, we can kind of consider them to be real world problems or real world questions, but we use the word contextual instead of real world because some of the things are not what you'd see in the real world. Other things definitely are. So we're going to look at ones that we can deal with quadratic functions. We can deal with all sorts of different functions. We can deal with linear functions. We can deal with sinusoidal, logarithmic functions, natural functions. You could even throw other types of functions in there if you wanted to as well, but we're just going to deal with quadratics, make it a little bit simpler for us in this time. I'm going to be jumping back and forth between this window here as well as our Desmos graph once we get down to our questions. So now there's a couple different ways that I might give you a question. The first one is that the equation is going to be given in the problem, and you're going to just need to determine what the answers are to a number of questions. Now, when we do that, we're still going to go through all the information and such, but that would be a simple way. I give you the equation, you come up with the answers, draw the graph, and so on and so forth. The little bit more tougher way is that, let's say we have a number of points which are given to satisfy the problem, and then you're going to need to create a quadratic equation which satisfies the points. Now, you could use vertex form, factored form, or you could use regressions on Desmos to come up with the equation. Any one of those three is going to be fine. I'm going to always use regressions on Desmos as that's a little bit of a simpler way, and that's the way we're going to be doing it moving on forward. Unless you really like algebra, and then you can use algebra as well. Now, for each problem, what we're going to be doing here is, number one, we're going to define our variables. Okay, what is x? What is y? Okay. Sometimes it's going to be given to us, sometimes it's not. But whenever you come up with your answer, you always have to say what is x and what is y. Very important that we know what those are, even if they're given in the question. Okay, your answer, I should be able to determine what's going on with your answer, even if I don't read the question. So that's something that you need to make sure you have. Provide restrictions for our variables. Okay, what number system is a part of? Is it whole numbers, integers, real numbers? Is it all numbers? Do they need to be greater than 0, and so on and so forth? And this will be a little bit more with our domain and range as well. Then every single question must have a labeled graph. Okay, when I say label, I'm talking about intercepts when feasible. Sometimes that y-intercept is not feasible, sometimes it is, but make sure that we have all of our intercepts labeled. Our axis of symmetry is labeled, and I'll show you how to do that on Desmos as we go through our questions. Make sure we have our vertex. Other important points, so these would be our answers. Okay, so we'll go through what our answers are, and if we have certain answers that we need to look at, those will be in there as well. And then we need to make sure we have our labeled axis, and I'm going to show you how to do that on Desmos as well. That's something that we haven't done quite yet, but I'll show you how to do on Desmos. If you're drawing out your graphs, you don't really need to worry about that because you can write out what your axes are. Then always make sure we have the equation as well as our domain and range. That has to always be in there. Okay, always make sure we have domain and range, especially with contextual problems, because our domain and range tends to be a little bit different, and we have to kind of modify it a little bit as well. So those are things we need to worry about. We'll go through that in each of our questions. We'll make sure that we put everything together. I'm going to put it onto Desmos, and then I'll show you how we can put it into a document as well, or we can just show everything on Desmos. And if you want to do that, you can use that as well. I'll show you even how to put your answers into Desmos, and that might help you when you take screenshots. You don't necessarily have to do two parts, just do the one part, everything on Desmos.